I'd like to call this meeting to order. Number 3, awards and recognition. Mr. Parker?
Yes, I apologize. Sorry about that.
All right. Just wanted to start out with some teacher recognition. First, we've got Miss Amy Bohannon from Southern Elementary School. Yes, that's right. Give her some applause. That's right. And she, some of the comments that were said about her was that she shows great dedication to our students, and through her teaching career, she's always researching and finding resources that will help her students succeed. She takes time out to learn what is popular amongst her students each year and listens to their music, reads what they read, and watches what they watch so she can connect with them and have more relevant relationships. Ms. Bohannon takes her profession seriously, and you can tell that she truly cares about every child that walks through the door. On behalf of the Scott County Education Association and the Scott County Board of Ed, please join me in recognizing again Ms. Amy Bohannon. Next up, we have from Western Elementary, Camry Ingram. So, Miss Ingram, some of the comments said about her, she is a positive person by nature. She and her colleague have started a positivity committee to create opportunities to honor teachers in the building and create a culture of positivity. When it comes to her own classroom, Miss Ingram is reflective. She's constantly striving for feedback to better her instruction. And when students do not meet mastery or show growth, she reflects on her instructional strategies and she makes sure to implement new ones. So if you would please help me in honoring Miss Camry Ingram. Student recognition. I think that this is, this is pretty cool. So as special recognition this month, we have students from Northern Elementary and from Scott County Middle School. Many of you probably heard of the very successful cottage industry known as Moe's Bakery. This thriving entrepreneurship has taken off locally thanks to the hard work of some of our students, and we're so happy to recognize their efforts. Moe's is an acronym that encompasses the names of siblings Max, Olivia, and Eli Coyne. Max and Eli are 10 and attend Northern Elementary, and their sister Olivia is in 7th grade at Scott County Middle School. The students manage an online ordering system with a strong social media presence. They develop recipes with the help of younger brother Jude. Jude's with us too. With the help of Jude as lead taste tester. You like that job? Jude's a kindergartner at Northern Elementary School. They bake a couple times per month and fill orders through pickup and delivery. And to date, they have baked more than 12,000 cookies. That's impressive. That's impressive. In Scott County Schools, we focus a lot on the effort of career and technical education and the business management and entrepreneurial skills that these three have developed and continue to strengthen are exemplary and worthy of our praise. We wish them nothing but the best as they continue to grow their business, and on behalf of Scott County Board of Education, it's my pleasure to present Max, Olivia, Eli, and Jude with the Scott County Schools Challenge coin this evening. Come on up, guys. Now, you'll notice that they have something that they're passing out. This is also Board Member Appreciation Month, and so we have a sampling for our board members that has been provided by these students.
That's wonderful.
Isn't that just awesome?
Thank you guys so
Pictures with each of us, how do we want to do this? Shake here. Present, I'll give you that. There you go. There you are, sir. I want a picture to say, hey, before they got super crazy famous, I knew these guys.
Thank you. That was wonderful. Thank you for joining us this evening. Appreciate that.
I've got one last thing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Surprising you.
One last thing. So this is Board Recognition Month, and as we just discussed, we've got a special presentation there for Moe's Bakery. And I'd also like to just point out that, January is that month that we are always making sure to recognize our board. Our board members spend countless hours working in support of student achievement. Student achievement is our focus, and we've worked really hard these past few months, especially to try and keep that as our focus. They oversee our district's financial resources. They work to create a safe learning and working environment for students and staff, and they collaborate to solve problems and focus on the continuous improvement of our district for the benefit of our schools and our students. On behalf of the students and staff members of Scott County Schools, I'd like to express my most sincere appreciation for their hard work and continued support, and as a result, we have a small token for you all as well. So thank you so much. I really do appreciate everything that you all do for us, and I understand how difficult, particularly the past few years have been, and I enjoy working hand in hand with you all as a board superintendent team. Thank you all.
We really appreciate that. Number 4, agenda approval.
Second.
All in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Number 5 is public comment. We are able this week to go back to 5 minutes. Last week the last meeting, we closed it down to about 3, just simply because of the number of people we had here. So it will be 5 minutes. I do want to remind everybody that this is board comments. We don't converse. It's not board questions, that type of thing. So if you would, stick with our 5 minutes, we would greatly appreciate it. Anthony Young.
Thank you.
Hello. How are you?
I'm well, and yourself?
Good,
You
thank you.
generally are way under your time.
I plan on being today too.
Okay. I want to start the time.
It shouldn't take that long.
Thank you.
Actually, first, Mr. Parker, I'm going to address the comments that you made the other week, that parents who are seeking a mass optional policy are willing to put others in danger. Those parents you're talking about are healthcare workers, police officers, firefighters, and even your own teachers, who have spent their entire adult lives protecting and taking care of others. And for you to suggest otherwise was flat out untrue. That would be like me suggesting that because you want to keep the mask on kids, that you don't care about their emotional well-being and development. Myself and many others actually took offense to that comment. For the rest of the school board members, it seems as though you took most of your input for keeping masks on, mostly from the local health department and KDE guidance. You talked about how your systems are overstrained and right now, and I believe the word overwhelmed was actually used. I'm paraphrasing here, but I think somebody up here said that if masks can help with that, then we should do it. But guess what? It's not helping. Like if it was helping, you wouldn't be overwhelmed and overstrained. It says school districts are required to submit a COVID, or Senate Bill 1 says that school districts are required to submit a COVID-19 plan to KDE for informational purposes. It goes on further to say that there are no required elements or templates for that. So I know there was some talk last time about like testing to stay and like who has the power to do what. Well, you guys do. You don't have to follow any of those rules if you don't want to. I'm not saying that some of them are good or some of them are bad. I'm not getting into that debate. I'm just saying you have the power to ease those strains on yourself. The comments about the mask last week, there were little, if any, facts or data provided to say why the students should stay in masks, just lots of hopeful wishes and possibilities. We're choosing to keep the kids in masks right now because it feels right. Here are some facts. I know for a fact that teachers in this school district don't always wear a mask while teaching. I know for a fact that there are teachers in this school district who allow their students to remove their mask. It's a fact that this is hypocrisy at its finest when my entire family can attend a school function and not wear a mask at the same place where you made the kids wear a mask 2 hours earlier. It's a fact that neither the cloth mask or surgical masks are designed or certified to stop the inhalation of small airborne contaminants. It's a fact that other school districts have moved away from masks and have had the same or better rates than we do. All this information has been provided out there. Just this year, in May, the University of Louisville published a report that mask mandates and use are not associated with the slower state-level COVID-19 spread during COVID-19 growth surges. Europe just got rid of their mask mandates and all their COVID mandates. I'm not asking, they're doing it for the whole country. I'm just asking you to do it for our schools because at this point, it just doesn't make sense. Like we keep on talking about. I can go on Facebook right now and find pictures in all the schools where kids and everybody else aren't wearing masks at these school-sanctioned events. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Christy Connor. Good evening.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Ms. Duncan.
How are you?
You and I recently conversed via email.
Yes.
I actually wanted to address tonight concerns over the test to stay policy. I was informed today that one of my children had an exposure, and to be able to go back to school, he would have to test to stay. That in itself is not my concern. My concern is in discussing it with the nurse today. She informed me that those that are vaccinated do not have to test to stay as well. At this point, it's been proven, the CDC has even said it, that being vaccinated does not keep you from getting the virus, nor does it keep you from spreading it. So if my child who is unvaccinated has to test to stay, I'd like to know why children who are vaccinated don't have to test to stay. It's a double standard that should not be happening in our school system. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, that concludes our public comments for this evening. And we really appreciate you coming and joining and sharing information with us this evening. Number 6, consent agenda items A through H.
Move to approve. Second.
All in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Number 7, amend the 2021-2022 school calendar.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Number 8, authorize superintendent to exercise his discretion pursuant to Section 12 of Senate Bill 25 on decisions about temporary assignment of students to remote instruction for COVID purposes.
Move to approve. Second.
All in-
Question,
Sure. Kevin?
what is the remote learning process?
So, I think the more clear thing to say is that really, this was something that the board attorney asked us to put on the agenda. I don't have any intent on us using any of these days, because the way the days are set up, you can't use them district-wide. So as a for instance, if we had a situation where we don't have enough bus drivers to pick up all our kids and we're having to double the multiple routes, the option we could use with those days would be to decide which school we're not going to have that day and everybody else goes. I would imagine you can understand how that might go.
So I'm guessing what the legislature had in mind was the districts maybe that were going mask-free and had groups caught in quarantines, that sort of thing? Is that between, otherwise what? just wondering
That's the closest thing I could
Me
rationalize.
too, that's what I
The-
thought when I read it, that they
For
were
what they.
giving
think
districts the
would help.
option to shut down a school or a group of schools.
So in the fall, they provided this same kind of opportunity. They made a small tweak to it between the fall and now. We didn't use any of the days in the fall because it was the same kind of deal where you could do certain schools, but you couldn't do the whole district. Some people believe that that was intended because of the concern that some legislators might have had about some larger districts maybe jumping on that and using every day given to them, if that makes sense. You know,
I've seen that happen.
so, and I think, as we've said, you know, in-person learning's been a priority for us. You know, we've got our 10 MTI days that we have that could be weather-related, they could be COVID-related, they could be
Right.
whatever. We've had to use some of those. On the agenda, we're talking about, you know, amending the school calendar because we're looking at the opportunity to take days that were originally non-school days that will become school days. So as a way to say, look, we don't go a certain day, that's fine, but we're gonna make it up. Just to kind of show that we're trying to use every single available option that we've got. I don't want to get into using those days at all. Again, Josh just recommended that we put it on there so that we could have it. But again, I sent an email out, actually, did I copy you on that?
Yes.
So I was very clear that highly unlikely and really don't want to have to use those days.
So when people are looking at this, and they believe that what this means is we're getting an additional 10 NTI days, that's just not
Not
accurate.
true, no.
And it's because that we can't use them like we're using the 10 that we do have.
Yeah. You know, imagine if Creekside Elementary's got, that's the thing too, is really right now, what we're seeing, we're not seeing pockets, we're seeing consistency across the board. So, to think that there'd be one, you know, like for instance, Creekside Elementary, let's just say Creekside had a situation where we thought about even considering that. Well, you know, just off the top of my head, I'm thinking there may be parents that are like, well, their middle school and high school siblings are the ones that watch them, and you're sending them to school. So
It'd be a nightmare with that case.
they're right. I think that, yeah, there are definitely some unintended consequences with the way that it's been set up. Again, I shared with principals, asked them to share with the staff. I heard from several staff yesterday that clearly the principals either shared it, by pressing forward or by reaching out to them and kind of paraphrasing, but everybody kind of understands, because that was the thing too, is I didn't want people, you know, I realize right now we're at a time where there are struggles. You know, you all know I was subbing at one of the high schools today because that's the kind of situation that we're currently in, but we're trying to stay open. And, you know, with that said, you know, if people think, oh, well, you've got 10 more days that you can throw at that, well, but we really don't. So I wanted it to be clear, that's why we're still trying to be conservative with our days. So, does that kind of help?
That takes care of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you said something, because I think it's important that we clarify that.
I made a note, I was gonna mention that superintendent's report if it didn't, yeah.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Number 9, approve technology surplus items.
Second.
All in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Number 10, approve surplus items.
Second.
All in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Number 11, student achievement report. Good evening.
You have these in your portal as well, but just in case you don't get a chance to look at it.
Thank you.
It might be running a meeting.
a little bit.
So today we're going to be talking about, as you know, we've been in the process of learning recovery, and one of the parts of that is for us to be monitoring the parts of that. That's fine, you can see. We'll just go off paper ones. Is to be monitoring aspects of the recovery plan that we had, and so the way that we're monitoring that is by doing learning walks in our schools. So we have focused in on a couple of very specific things this year. Learning goals and success criteria, which a team of teachers has worked on rebuilding our curriculum. And good job, Candy. And so they have built our curriculum, which includes learning goals and success criteria that's provided for the teachers for the major content areas. And so we're looking for those. We're looking for formative assessments happening in our classrooms, and we're looking for student feedback based on those assessments as well. So the first chart is really just looking at the number of learning walks that we've done. So for the first semester, we've been in 150 classrooms. Now that's not as many as we would hope to. It's a good start for us, but we're definitely thinking we need to get into more, and we'll talk a little bit about that. We have a instrument that we use when we go around and observe in classrooms, and we mark them based on this criteria. So for learning goal success criteria, either it's not visible, accessible, it is visible and accessible, or it's visible, accessible, understood, students are using it, which is the highest level. Formative assessment, either yes or no, we saw it or we didn't see it. And then based on that, are students getting feedback from that? So we either don't have it, or we didn't see it, or it's ineffective, or there is effective and individualized feedback to students. Now, for feedback to be effective, what we're looking for is that it's individualized, it's actionable, and it's very specific for those students. They know what they need to do to move their learning forward based on that. So what you'll see after that are several charts, nice pie graphs that show for each month each of those areas. So in September you'll see, this is just learning goals and success criteria. So what we're looking for is that green piece of pie to really grow. Yellow means that they're there, so they're using them, but it's not necessarily being used by the students. And so we really want to see that green piece grow. So when we started off in September and October, we didn't see a whole lot of growth in that area. But when we moved into November, we really got into that. And I think that was in part because, September and October, we were getting our feet wet, we were getting back, and it was a difficult time, and we were really making sure that our students were feeling comfortable. It wasn't necessarily the main focus at the beginning of the year. Once everybody got on board, we're like, okay, we have these, we need to be using these. Everything was rolled out to them. They really took to them and started using them much more. And so, and then you see December. So December we had a little bit of a lag there, mainly because, well, two things. We didn't get into as many classrooms in December, but also it was December. And we wanted our kids to be enjoying school, and it's still learning. We just didn't have quite the focus in December. And then for formative assessment data, did we see it or did we not see it? You'll see that this pretty much stays static throughout those 4 months. Now, one of the things that we thought about was it really depends on when we're in that classroom, whether or not we're going to see formative assessment. So these learning walks, we're in the classroom for 15 or 20 minutes. It's very possible that if we're in the middle of the class, we don't see formative assessment. And so there was also a big conversation with our team to make sure that we all are agreeing on how do we score formative assessment? Is it actual assessments? Is it a piece of paper? Is it something that they're doing in Mastery Connect? Do we have to see that kind of evidence? Or is it just as much a teacher going around while students are working, checking on their progress, asking them questions, seeing how they're understanding what they're doing? And so that was really important for us to get calibrated on that idea of formative assessment.
And where did you land on that calibration? Because that was actually a question of mine I had before you guys
Yes,
planned to ask.
it is all of those things that we talked
Okay,
about.
because
So,
I reflected when I saw that,
Yes.
depending on what it looked like as a high school teacher, my formative assessment would look very different than
right.
at an elementary level.
Right, yes, and it is, it's all of those things. What we're really trying to determine is the teacher getting individualized information on their students to know what they need as their next steps for learning. That's what formative assessment should be. And our students getting the opportunity to get feedback on that is the next stage of that. So the feedback part of that, you'll see same thing. When we started off, we were kind of mixed. We had, about a third that we would see, and same going into October. And then November and December, you saw quite an uptick in that. And again, we believe that's because we were still pushing this, we were still teaching about it, our principals were still learning about it, our teachers were still learning about it. And so we saw an increase in the amount of effective and individualized student feedback. So that's kind of where we were as we looked at this. And what we did is, this is district-wide data. We took it as an OSL team, sat down and analyzed it together, and really went through it. And so what we came back with is we need some next steps. We shared these same things, actually this exact PowerPoint, with our principals at our last DLT. And of course, the very next thing that they asked for is, I want my school data. And we gave that to them as well. They wanted to know, okay, this district data is nice, but how do I compare? And we did give them a little bit of a caveat because, look, we did not have a large sample size for all of our schools, so it's hard to say a percentage. It could be 50%, but if you only saw 6 classrooms, that's just three teachers, right? So here's your data, but don't necessarily use this as a school indicator per se. Use it as kind of in the back of your mind.
Are principals being coached to use the same?
Yes.
form?
Yes. Yes. So the other thing that came out of this when we went through our data, like I said, talking about, for instance, formative assessment. Depending on when we're in the classroom or that part of the lesson, we may or may not see that, or may not even expect to see it. Same with learning goals success criteria. We might really see a lot of student use at the beginning and at the end, and maybe not as much in the middle. So it's just going to be dependent. And one of the things we did not have on our instrument was, what part of the lesson are we in there? We had time of day. And we said, well, this is useless to us because it doesn't matter what time of day we're in there. It should all look good no matter when we're in there. So we did a lot of revision to our Learning Walk instrument as part of this process. We also, they asked at our last one, when can I have access to this tool? And so we have given them access as well. So they have it, and we're encouraging them to use it as part of their walkthrough as well. We also had to calibrate as an OSL team because we're splitting this up and we're going in pairs or groups of 3 and doing our learning walks. We need to make sure that if I go visit a classroom with Deborah and then Robin and Maria go visit a classroom, they're going to be scored the same way. It's not going to depend on who walks in there. So what we did in the second week of school, we all went to Northern and went into a couple of classrooms and used this. And when we came out, we came back here and we talked about the evidence. How do we score this? Why are we scoring it this way? Are we agreeing on it? Again, that conversation about formative assessment was a really rich one for us to have, and we recognize, hey, we need to have this conversation with our principals too, and we did. So we all calibrated to make sure that we were on the same page.
That was the
and
second week back from winter break.
Yes, second week back from winter break, and we had a couple of brave teachers up there and let the whole team walk in into their classroom at that time. So we were able to do that. Our other next step is that we're now going to do 2 learning walks visits at every school by the end of February. And then we're going to do 2 more in March and April. So that's just visits. So not saying we're just going to visit 2 classrooms, because the other thing is we're committing to getting more classrooms to increase our data validity. Obviously, the bigger sample size you have, the more valid your data is, and the more you can actually rely on it to say, this is a truer picture of our district. So the nice thing is with our next steps, we've actually done most of those. So principals have the revised tool. They have it to make a copy and can use it with their leadership teams at schools. They'll have their own data for them to use. We've already calibrated, and we all committed to saying we need to get into more classrooms this coming semester so that we can get a better feel for this.
When you say you've offered it and they're going to encourage them to use it, are you going to calibrate with them, similar to what your team did, so that if you're asking for their data or they're sharing their data, we're sure we're all on the same page?
Yeah, that's a great question. And what we have said that is when our team now comes out, we would really like for the principal to be there with us as we're going into classrooms so we can have those conversations afterwards. Part of this process, which we really didn't talk about, was that after the OSL team has been there, we actually go in and we have a debrief with our principals about this. This is what we saw. And teachers are getting feedback on this as well. So it's all, yeah, so we're trying to get everybody on that same page.
So I'm curious about the teacher feedback.
Yeah.
And how the principals are using what they're giving them. So you're seeing 3 teachers in a building maybe, and so principals are gonna take this and they're getting feedback on 3 of the teachers in their building, right? So are teachers aware of what's in this feedback, and are the and so I'm just not quite understanding how that, if I'm a teacher and you walk in my room and you're in the middle of my classroom and I'm getting some school, marks that are not necessarily the best, how, then do I have an opportunity to improve, or because I can see I would be worried to death if that was me. If you walk in my classroom in the middle of the class and you don't see any of these things, then do I get to say, hey, wait a minute, can you please have them come back where they can see me doing this stuff?
Right.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
So that's,
And-
I just wondered how you're addressing that aspect of it.
Yeah, so one of the things is that we are really focusing on the positive with teachers because it is a stressful year for teachers.
Yeah, this shouldn't
And
be a
so,
gotcha.
Yeah,
We
and
should-
that was my worry
Really,
is,
it's not received.
Yeah, I just-
No, not at all.
I could
It-
just see the stress
We are
level.
really, really focusing on the positive with the teachers. We really like how you did this. We really, and pointing out those things that they're doing great. Another thing that has come out of this is that when we're in classrooms and we see something good, we might go back to that teacher and say, hey, we love the way that you shared learning goals and success criteria with your students and we're able to get them to understand it. And we might video, or we've taken pictures, or we've done things like that. And we're gonna set up an area on our website where we display basically positive ways of doing this, positive examples within our district. So we're really putting as much of the positive on that for the teachers as we can. If they get any feedback that's corrective, it's more like a suggestion. Maybe think about this, maybe think about that. Now as principals, they might get a little bit more detailed about that, and what they do with that is kind of up to them. As principals, as leaders, we all know that if you go into a classroom for 15 or 20 minutes, it's kind of like state assessment. We take it, that assessment on that day might not be a true indicator of that student's ability. Same thing, if you go in for 15 or 20 minutes, there are times that, we might go in there and it's not the type of lesson that we would want to base an observation on. And we might just say, you know what, we're just gonna come back another time and not do it during this one as well. So the principals, when they get that, they're really kind of just adding it to their information that they already have about their classrooms.
That was what I was wondering, is if they knew what day you were coming, because there were some lessons
Yeah.
that I would think that, maybe not everything would be measurable on that day. So if you popped in and, you might not be able to gather your data that day, so.
Yeah,
You would just come back at a different day.
right, yeah, and we schedule these with the principals so that
Okay.
they know what day we're coming, and I think almost every one of them tells their teachers that we're going to be there. They know what's on the learning walk. There's no, man behind the curtain on this. It's all transparent. This is what we're looking for. Here's what the instrument looks like. So they know all of that.
Yeah, that's
But the
good.
teachers
Yeah.
don't know ahead of time that you're coming into their room.
Most of them do.
Most of them do.
Yes,
And
most of them
the
do.
main goal of this learning walk tool is that we get district data
Yeah.
that tells us,
Mhm.
here's where we just need to focus our training.
Yeah, and I think that's what I would hope more that this does, right?
Yes.
Than the teacher level in the classroom,
Yeah,
catch a
that's-
teacher at a bad moment.
Right, that's not our role at
Yeah.
all.
No,
It's,
no.
I can absolutely see how, as you add more in, and statistically, you've got more data, this would be a great tool so that we know where we are district-wide. I just don't want the teachers to be stressed that they're getting
Yeah.
something.
It is not a got you at all, it's
Yeah.
more of a, get ourselves to say, we
Right.
need to do a
We
better
need to do
job
better.
here, is what it's for. And we always leave, Paul mentioned, the feedback is always positive to the individual teachers. Usually it's a nice little note, we write it and we leave it as we're leaving the classroom.
Mhm.
Thank you.
A couple of thoughts I had as I was looking, you don't want me to go back, but just, as I was looking through, and I know you talked about tweaking the instrument
Yeah.
and having reflected on doing it, and I'm wondering if NA is a category that's considered, because like you said, there are some days that, or some moments when you're in a classroom and feedback, formative assessment and that maybe just isn't applicable for that 5 or 10 minutes that you're in that room. It's not, you know, and to say that there is none implies an opportunity was there and wasn't taken versus it just wasn't appropriate at this particular time in this lesson. So, you know, so that's just me thinking
Yeah.
out loud.
Yeah.
As I look through it, that was just me thinking out loud.
Yeah, that was one of the things, you know, the formative assessment part was big for us, because we didn't want it to be like that. That is exactly what we were
Sure, just
afraid
so your
of.
data maybe isn't showing.
And
us
so,
what
right,
the
you'll see
negative
when we
is
get
really
the
there.
next round of data, how it's changed and how it is more, it just simply says not observed. It's not whether it was there, it should have been, or it wasn't, you know, it should have been there and wasn't. It's just simply, it was not observed. And
Right,
so we're
I
not,
just wondered as I
gonna
looked what that
evaluate
breakdown
that.
was, not
Yeah.
observed, and how many of those not observed truly just didn't have it there,
right,
or just it wasn't appropriate to the time you were there.
yeah.
And then, I'm curious, when you were giving, on the formative assessments, or not, the ineffective,
Feedback.
yes,
Yeah.
feedback being effective or non-existent or there, what sort of criteria, I mean, how are you all as a team defining ineffective?
Yeah,
I mean,
so.
is it the wrong answer? Are they
Well-
are they misteaching, or is it, what does that look like? What
Yeah,
is
so
ineffective feedback?
we
If
have
you're
s-
getting feedback, I'm taking it, but it just, in your mind, it isn't effective.
Well, yes, right. So we have worked on talking about feedback in our district for several years now. It's been part of Telnet, it's part of the gradual release process, because formative assessment is a big part of that. So for feedback to be considered effective, it has to be actionable, so they know what their next steps are. It has to be timely, so they're getting it in a time when they can actually do something about it, and it has to be individualized. So, for instance, we talked about looking at if a teacher is doing a whiteboard material, a whiteboard activity, where they are asking a question, a math question to the whole class. The whole class writes down the math question, and then at the same time, they show it, okay? Then, what's the teacher do at that point? Is the teacher getting just a general idea? Okay, it looks like, you know, about roughly 75% of my students have it, are we moving forward? Or are they putting that up there, and then are they doing something with those answers that they see? That's not as effective as if students are working individually, and they're going around and they're checking each individual student. I'm talking to you, you know. You know, it's not as effective as if they are working individually with students and getting that feedback, you know. So that's what we're really looking for, is it, because what formative assessment should do is it should say, this was what we were trying to learn, this is where we were trying to get you, here's where you are now. Either you've got it or you don't have it, and here's what you need to do to get there.
Okay, because again, in my mind, I'm just trying to put myself in the place of the teacher, as well as the observer, and thinking, you know, it is a challenge. You know, and particularly when you get to secondary level, in middle school and high school, when you're in a 45, 55-minute window, to give what we're defining as
With
individualized
30 or 40
effective
students in a classroom.
feedback, right, to 25+ students. Now, obviously, I mean, and then to track how often you're doing it for each individual student, that seems like a heavy load to bear. I'm not saying it shouldn't be done, I agree with you completely. I'm putting myself in that place, and then how, almost like trying to find a needle in a haystack, to find that moment where you're getting all of that encompassed.
Yeah.
But at the same time, to quote the court justice, you can't define it, but you know it when you see it. So those 5 or 10 minutes in that classroom, you know when you've got it, I mean, you know when you've seen quality teaching. You may not be able to check every box in that moment, but you know when you're seeing quality teaching in a positive environment and it's enriching, versus if it's not, there's this stuff. But,
Yeah.
you know,
Again,
so I worry that, I don't know, this is fabulous, and the data's good. I felt for the teachers a little bit, thinking, gosh.
Well, and
But I understand the data's more for you than the teachers, so
Yeah.
I
But-
totally understand.
So, given this year and everything, that's been something, I mean, Paul, some of the questions you're asking, Paul, I mean, it's a.
I'm sure I'm
deja
not
vu,
asking
because
anything
me
you all
and
haven't
Paul,
sat there and thought
me and
about.
Paul were talking about the same thing.
Sure.
But certainly, I think at the beginning, you know, just naturally, there was a little reluctance from some, but I think it's been seen as more of a burden now that we've been real consistent with, oh, they're coming again, and they're in our schools,
Sure.
versus a burden. It's been seen as a benefit. And, you know, I talked to Paul right when we came back from break, I'm like, do we need to like put the brakes on this? Because, you know, our schools, but the way that they've got it structured right now with their teams that go in, they can be flexible based on what's going on in the school that they, with staffing and those guys.
No, I think it's fabulous, and I mean, through the years, we've seen pockets of this across the district, different schools have done it, similar type things, so I think it's fabulous that we're calling this day and getting this kind of feedback.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. District, I could see like at this level, how this is very useful. And I just worried about the teachers going, oh, wait, this is a gotcha. But I love that you're giving them a note, you're finding something positive, you're.
Well, I appreciate this. It just seems like this is part of our recovery plan that we've been talking about since last year for months and months. And this is a really good way to take a look and inspect what we expect and set the standards and see where we need to pivot and turn. And it sounds like that's exactly what you've done so far with this semester. You started off, as you said, and here's our data, and then we realized we needed to pivot a little bit. And obviously, that's what you need to do quite often, actually, you know, once you realize you got a problem. So I really am excited about you guys being in the buildings and taking a look at, you know, the
And we are actually, speaking of the recovery work, we have our CIAST meeting next week, the Curriculum Instruction Assessment and Student Support Group. Our first meeting of this new year, we have returning members and we also have new members joining. We also opened it up to assistant principals. So some of the assistant principals have decided to join us, and we will look at our plans. What did we get accomplished? What did we not get accomplished? Where do we need to go moving forward? What will summer look like? What will next school year look like? So we're really excited to get that group going. Again, we won't be meeting every week like we did at first last year. But we will begin those meetings again so we can keep that momentum going.
Good, good, because I attended a few of those meetings, and they were very exciting, you know, with the breakout groups and everybody collaborating and putting their ideas together. So I'm glad to hear you guys are going through and reassessing and adding in some new members for food for thought, so wonderful, thank you.
I think Diana touched on something that's really important too. You being in the building sets the standard, right? If you're being there, then there is an understanding that, oh, wait, they're serious here, right? You know, and they're gonna be in here, and these are the standards that we're setting, and this is the district's expectation. So I think, again, at that level, I think that's all great, good things.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing with us. I appreciate it. Number 12, adopt achievement gap targets. All in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Approved MOA between Scott County Schools and EKU Clinical Therapeutic Program. I'm sorry. I sure did. I'm sorry. Number 13, thank you, Joanna. Approved Georgetown College Department of Education, Education Research Study Request. Now I know. Do I have a motion? All in favor?
I got one question.
Yes.
Once they get finished with their study, will we get any of the feedback from that?
You know, she called me, Dr. Ford called me, before she was submitting this.
I figured when I didn't hear a question from you on this one, I thought, I bet you've already.
She called me. Yeah, she just wanna make sure who she knew.
Yeah, we know. I can Joanna's list of questions. Yeah.
So, she called me, and I asked her that question. I was like, wow, this sounds great. You want to share it with us when you get it back? And she was certainly agreeable to do that if we would want her to do that.
I think it'd be a great idea. Motion, second. All in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. We're moving on from number 13. Number 14, approve MOA between Scott County Schools and EKU Clinical Therapeutic Program.
Move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Number 15, approve USDA required meal price increase.
Move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Number 16, approve mowing bid for 2022.
Move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Number 17, consider acceptance of 2021-2022 SFCC offer of assistance.
Second.
All in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Number 18, draft budget 2023 reviewed by Scott County Board of Education. I don't believe that's a, yes.
Just a review, I can go
Just a
over
review.
the highlights if you like, or if you all have sent to you all.
Does anybody have any questions at this
I
time?
looked over what you sent.
Yeah,
Okay.
the narrative was great, Gina.
Yeah,
Thank
it was
you.
great.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. Well, Gina, number 19,
Oh, yeah.
come on up. Financial statement, we still have you.
I'm
Come
just
on up.
hanging out, okay?
Yeah.
Looked at the computer all day, my eyes go wrong. Our beginning balance was 7.2 million. We had receipts of 31.9 million with our big tax deposit. Expenses of 9.1 million, receivables and transfers of 170,000. Our ending cash balance was a little over 30 million. And we had a few bonds, a little bit of interest in bonds, but our ending cash balance was $30,095,335.27. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Number 20, approve donations report July 1st, 2021 through December 31st, 2021.
Move.
All in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Number 22, approve 30/60/90 plan from ILP, the new superintendent training.
Did we skip one?
I think you missed one.
Did I do that again? I'm so sorry, everybody. My computer's clicking every time I click on it, it jumps me around, I'm sorry. Number 21, approve current bills.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Number 22, approve 30/60/90 plan from ILP, new superintendent training.
Move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Number 23, approve superintendent individualized learning plan documents.
Move.
Second.
All in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Number 24, superintendent's report.
So with superintendent's report, I'll start off by saying with relation to that ILP team, Diana may share a little bit more about it, but the executive coach that's a part of that, Fred Carter, he'll be at the next board meeting that we have. He'll be here February 10th for the work session that I know that we're having. That's just a piece of it is coming to a board meeting. So you all will get a chance to meet him, and I look forward to that opportunity. Strategic leadership, so myself and Dwayne Ellison met with the folks at the Georgetown Scott County Planning Commission, just looking at what they're seeing in terms of growth in the community. You know, is it we're, you know, in line with what we were expecting, and I felt really good in terms of the fact, all the work we did with redistricting and with building our schools before, because for the most part, there really wasn't anything that was a shocker.
So when we redistricted and kind of looked towards where the growth was when we done that redistricting, it still kind of looks that same.
Right, right, yeah. Now, there are, you know, there's a neighborhood here or there that, you know, we knew was coming, but now there's more details versus what there was at the time. But, all, you know, by and large, it just kind of confirmed what we already knew to be so. But it was great because they got some new people on their team. So having some new people on their team, it was good to kind of put face with the name and establish some relationships there, so that they knew, you know, when we would be reaching out. That'll be something that we'll need as we move further and further down the line. We also have Dwayne participating in their technology review committee group, and that's kind of a monthly thing where as new developments come on, he participates in that, and sometimes it can be participation just through email, and he'll get some documents and review those, and sometimes it can be you perhaps attending a meeting. I think I attended a meeting one time, I think in regard to the subdivision going in to the north of Ann Mason. So not always a heavy lift, but sometimes requires some meetings. And they've also got another group that's meeting, and I believe it's Brent Allen's going to serve on that as well, since he deals with our attendance zones, and it would be good to kind of get him, you know, thinking about those kinds of things and just and how that all kind of fits together. Instructional leadership, so been having much more consistent meetings with both Deborah and Paul, and that's been obvious with, with Neosha moving on. We just wanted to make sure that we were able to really have a coordinated plan of attack for everything that we're doing. That's been beneficial. We've got a couple meetings a week generally that are set in stone that we meet, but then we've got other things. They popped in today and had a quick meeting with me. It was more than 3 minutes though. You said it's going to be 3. It was more than 3. I know it was more than 3.
Now, I think because you kept talking.
Well, Number 3, cultural leadership. There was a Martin Luther King Day program that was put on at the First Baptist Church. There was supposed to be a little bit of a meet and greet with the presenter and also march. That portion of the program or of the event was canceled, but the program did stay on, and that was just a really good event. We had they had Reverend Dr. Carolyn Knight spoke, and we also had an opportunity to hear from the Great Crossing and Scott County High School choir group, as well as Georgetown College. They had a group there as well. So that was a wonderful event. Number 4, human resources leadership. We are preparing for allocation meetings. So we are getting everybody's coordinating the team to kind of make sure that we have everybody, just everybody on the same page as far as what we're looking at for staffing for our schools. And I had a conversation yesterday with the Special Ed Director, Kim Hinton. She and I talked through, what does that need to look like and her involvement in this. And so we're really excited to include her in that group and provide our principals with some information about what's coming for them based on their enrollment. Managerial leadership, really just kind of all things COVID. Every day it's something a little bit different, it seems like. We've looked at the guidance adjustments, we've looked at creative staffing solutions and just monitoring the prevalence that we're seeing in the community. Our student attendance has been low. Today may have been the lowest that I think we've ever had school, as was the number of staff that were out today. It was pretty tough, and as soon as this meeting's over, we'll be pulling together to look at what tomorrow's looking like, because tomorrow's looking. We need to pull together as soon as we get done with this meeting to talk through that. And then looking at it too historically compared to previous years as far as attendance, we just see the big difference. And we're trying to get through and keep us in person. And trying to kind of ration, I guess, is the best way I know to use it. The best term I know to use is ration the days that we have. Some have suggested that safety and health is a concern, and others have, when I talk to staff, it seems like everybody understands the situation that we're in. They understand the difficulty of the situation that we're in, and trying to stay open. And when presented with the option of, we have limited days, we're trying to keep from going to school up into the middle of June, you see heads nod and people are on board with kind of the direction that we're going right now with all of that. The collaborative leadership, I'll let that blank. I've got maybe something to say at the very end on that one, but I also wanted to share too that we did begin work on phase 2 of the archaeological survey for the new Scott County High School.
Turn that off.
There you go.
Question during my comment.
See, there you go. I don't know what kind of excuse they may have if weather may play into that, because I know it's supposed to get bitterly cold upcoming. But current timeline is about 2 weeks for them to get that piece of their work done, and at that point, that's when they are expected to be able to provide a report, submit that report to the Kentucky Historical Society for final review. So that's just kind of where that is. I want to give you a little bit of an update on that. Standard 7, influential leadership, had some meetings with our legislators in Frankfort last week to discuss different legislation that was out there. Went as part of an event that was being put on by a group that I'm a part of, and just ended up kind of informal and ended up getting to have lunch with Representative Pratt, and he pulled in another gentleman, and we had a conversation about just some different bills that they're considering, and I felt that they were really responsive to trying to hear what we might have to say on some of the things that they're considering. Also, as part of KASA, Kentucky Association of School Administrators, I'm part of their executive policy committee, and that's just kind of a review of different bills that come down the pike that relate to education. We went from having a very, very small list to this past meeting. I've got a little homework to do to catch up because there's so much kind of on the table to consider. That, like I said, I might circle back towards the very end, but I just wanted to share with you my superintendent's report, so there it is.
Okay, thank you very much. Number 25 is board comments. Kevin, would you like to start us off this evening?
Sure. I guess the one thing I'd like to say is I'd like to express my thank you to Billy and the staff that went out to help fill in on all the gaps. That's definitely a little above and beyond your normal call of duty sort of thing. And a big thank you to the folks who remained here in the office and held the fort down and kept all the pieces moving and everything continuing on, just as if you wasn't missing a step. That says a whole lot about the staff that you have, the people that you have in those places, and everybody's willing to jump in and help out when needed to, like you always say, to help the children move forward with things. I'm trying to fish through here to find my last one I had. I'm trying to use my emails to keep up with my notes and not so much paperwork. I guess that's it. Just thank you, and be sure to thank all the staff. That helps out a whole lot. And also, you know, it just shows the staff at the schools, they have support when they need it, they've got somebody to turn to. I actually got a text about, I don't know what time you and the rest of the folks that went out to fill in got there, but probably about 9 o'clock, 8:30-ish, 9 o'clock, I knew you guys was out taking teacher spots. So that just says a whole lot. I want to say thank you. That's all I got.
Thank you, Kevin. Joanna?
One thing. As you guys know, before five of you know, my husband and I are building a new home in the northern part of the county that will be completed early next month. Our new home is not in my current school board district, so I must resign my seat as the District 2 representative of the Scott County Board of Education. My resignation will be effective tomorrow, January 21st, 2022. I have enjoyed my tenure as a member of the board and will support this and future boards in any way I can and wish them all the best as they continue to make the best decisions for the students and staff at Scott County Schools.
Would you like to say anything else?
I can't.
Okay. I understand. I would like, Joanna, thank you so much for everything that you've done for us here in our school district over the past 9 years. 9 years, that's a lot of dedication, that's a lot of time, and I know that you hold this school district and the students' welfare and the staff's welfare at the utmost importance to you, and we greatly appreciate that. I would like to jump into some business that we do need to take care of as a school board, and I would like to have a motion to amend our agenda. And we're going to have to do a motion to accept her resignation.
So moved.
Second.
All in
Okay,
favor?
Art for the second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, is that for the amendment as well as, do we want to do a separate motion? Or is that all,
Make a motion that we advertise.
except the
I guess for
resignation?
Saturday, yes,
Yes,
yes.
okay.
As soon, I guess, when can you start that?
So we'll move to accept her resignation as of January 21st, and it allows us to, Billy and I, to post advertisement
I got you.
thereafter,
So,
the next
so we
day.
just moved, all we've done is change the agenda to do it. Now,
Right,
you're looking
I'm
for a motion
looking for a motion to accept
to
her
incorporate that.
resignation.
I move to accept Joanna's resignation effective January 1st and 21st, sorry, 2022. And then, do I need to incorporate the advertising?
It's not necessary,
Okay.
it's not necessary, according to
I move
Josh,
to
our
accept Joanna
attorney.
Fryman's resignation effective January 22nd.
Okay. All in favor?
Uh,
Those opposed? Motion carried. Sorry. I'm a little bit of a baby when it comes to those things, so I apologize for that. I do need to inform the board, according to KRS section 160.190, that I will work with our superintendent to post notice announcing the vacancy and solicit applications to fill the vacant seat. The content of the notice is dictated by the statute. The announcement will run on the district's website in the newspaper for 2 weeks. This announcement will include information about how to apply, where to apply, and the term of the appointment. Sometime after the announcement has run for 2 weeks, the board will meet and select a qualified applicant to fill the vacancy. The appointed candidate will fill Joanna's seat until November 8th, 2022 election, The entire process must be completed within 60 days as of January 21st. Are there any questions from the board as to this process? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I truly have enjoyed my time, and I appreciate all that you have done to support me and, you know, my endless questions. But I appreciate it, and I know you guys work hard, and I do wish you the best. I know you're gonna continue to do great things for Stockton. And I'll support you in any way.
I appreciate that, Sharon. I'm going to continue with board comments. Susan?
Sure. Two things, well, three, I guess, now. I had asked sometime back, a couple months ago maybe, about getting copies of or a link to the course scheduling documents that the high school students are going to be receiving at each high school with, in terms of what that's going to look like to them and then what courses are going to be available to them at the school. And I haven't got it yet, but I have a feeling that was just before Neosha announced she was leaving, and then she left. I'm sure that's just kind of saying through the cracks, no big deal, but I just kind of want to remind back out that I would very much would like to see those. Just whatever the students are getting, I'd like to be able to acknowledge just what we're offering them and how that looks for them. And then I've got some concerns about the NTI work we've got right now. I know when it first started was just as I was coming on board, when that legislation came through and the board adopted that. It was literally months before I came on board. And I know with Morris's leadership, there was a lot of work put into developing and working with teachers to develop that NTI work. And then it seemed as if, once we got into it, that perhaps that had been overworked. And it was a real struggle for teachers because we develop this work, but you can't predict where you're going to be in your timeline when we have the actual snow day, and so is the work applicable, is it timely? Then supporting the students to do it, and then getting the work back because it has to apply to the grade, and so I get it from a teacher standpoint. And so that I know just in the last year or so, there was work from the superintendent's office kind of being pushed down to simplify that and streamline that across the district so that it wasn't individualized by teacher or by school and grade, but really across the district. So all kindergartners, first, second grade, whatever. And we've seen that link, so I'm sure we've all seen that. And I mean, my first reaction to it was, seriously? That justifies a day of school? But I get it. I do understand the challenges. But I have since gotten feedback over this school year and these last few days, but I had heard it last year as well. Of course, we used so few of them last year. From not just parents, but teachers as well. So, and when I say feedback, I don't want to overblow it, but I've probably heard from 5 or 6 people, combination of teachers and parents. But I tend to agree with them. So I'm concerned. I'm not like trying to blow anything up here, but I just wonder if it's not worthy of a conversation or worthy of relooking at whether we've swung the pendulum too far back in one direction, from maybe overworking in the beginning to getting to where now it's hard to really justify that, you know, a child's found 10 things of one color in their house, and that's a day of school. I don't know, I mean, maybe I may be way off, but I'm hearing the feedback, and I just want to put that out there and wonder if you all think about it. It's laughing at me, but I don't know, there's got to be a happy medium that we can get to, I wish.
I got a phone call on that today and had about an hour discussion about the same thing, and I know that there's some discussions, I don't,
We've probably all had those.
yeah, I think we've all had those conversations about NTI and how it has evolved since it first came on the
And
platter.
I
And where
understood,
we are, yeah.
I mean, pendulum swing, I get it, but I'm wondering if it might be something worth considering, or I wonder if we shouldn't consider kind of getting finding the middle ground.
I think,
So I don't know if that's something that
I think there
the
were
board
some,
needs to initiate, or if that just needs to.
well, we've had lots of conversations about it.
I think
so
there were some
let me jump
challenges
in.
that existed within the district at that time that we're not quite, that aren't quite resolved, but
Right.
we're pretty close to where next school year, I think, may be resolved, to where I think we've got an opportunity.
I don't worry about it as much at the high school level, because I know a lot of those teachers are individualizing that naturally, even though it doesn't show up on the links, because I just have a working knowledge of how that goes, but. I'm
And
really worried about
considering the
that
past
now.
2 years that we've had with virtual last year, I can remember when, for whatever reason, we threw in NTI, and the idea that it was NTI and not the virtual, again, I remember we got a plethora of comments and questions about that, why aren't we doing NTI, and people were relieved that it was just trying to talk about life skills,
Yeah.
is what that whole thing was meant to be.
Right.
So, you know, considering all of that, and then the time that it jumped back about 5 years ago or so, give or take, it just seems like we're constantly evolving with it, and I know that Billy, in his new role, and we've just been talking about it recently, so it hasn't been anything to really share and what have you, but I know that there's some great
Well,
ideas that are
it
out
just
there.
kind of connects to some, you know, the
Yes.
grant we got, and the possibility of us really
Okay,
being
well, I'm glad you
being
did,
able to
because
be
it's just-
one-to-one in the future, you know, some
Right.
of those things
Be able
played
to see
into
Yeah,
accessibility.
And I understand the difficulty in the timeliness of it, because you
Yeah.
can't predict, and there's no way to prepare a lesson and it be right on the unit and really apply to what you're doing. But we, I just like, we've got to find a way to at least justify something that's closer to.
well, I know Billy and his team are working on some things to roll out hopefully soon, or hopefully by the end of the year,
Okay.
whatever it looks like for them as they get information, so, yeah, absolutely. I think we've all been involved in the NTI question here recently.
And then, finally, I'd just like to say, you know, I've worked with Joanna as, I was still working at Scott County High School when Joanna was on the board. And you had an open door policy then. And you set an exceptional example of what a school board member should be for me when I came on the board. And I appreciated your insight and your leadership as a fellow board member when I came on. And I've enjoyed generating friendship and a camaraderie, and Scott County Schools, it's gonna miss you because your dedication to the district is really can't be compared. So thank you.
And Stephanie.
Oh, yeah. I just want to say thanks to Billy for all, I know, I won't say too much because I know you've had a long day from beginning at 3 a.m. going out personally and checking those roads and spending your day at the high school. And I know firsthand those teenagers can wear you out. So, you know, I mean, how many school districts can say that their superintendent goes and, you know, it's literally the boots on the ground in the classroom. So, you know, I can express enough how amazing that is. And thanks for literally doing everything you can do to keep our doors open. I mean, that is just beyond awesome. And Joe, you've always been, you know, I remember before I even had my first board meeting, you called me up and said, hey, let's go meet, and we went to lunch, and you said, okay, look, this is how it's gonna be, and you know, took me through all the steps, and made me feel welcome right from the start, and that was more valuable than I can ever express. And you've always been there, I mean, just
every time I have a question, you've never not taken a phone call. You've always been right there and all. And Tim, you too, thank you for sharing her with us, because it takes so much time. I mean, this takes, it's not just the 2 meetings a month. It is more than a full-time job. I mean, we work constantly. So thank you so much for sharing her with us. And we're gonna miss you.
You're one of the few people who I let call me Joe, so.
That's because you can't stop it whether you're right or not.
No, I give everybody has a nickname.
Let's be honest.
Yeah. So, but you've always you just give and give and give and give. You give everything of yourself. And you're always there for everybody. And just thank you so much for that.
I wanted to add in, going back to the ILP that Billy takes part in, and I'm part of that committee that works with him on his growth plan. And I have to tell you, I was very, very impressed when I met with, I believe it's Mr. Carter and Mr. Kopp. I was very impressed by the structure and the strategies and, the direction that they take you in. And it is a very lengthy program, and they review so much with you. And, I know from talking with you pretty much daily that, I know the days that you go and you're at the meetings, and I'm really excited about that program, that they do this and kind of guide you through and mentor through. And, I know you have some wonderful mentors in your life, but I think this is just a really good, top of, what that offers for you. So I was very impressed with that, and I'm happy to be a part of it too. So I would like to I just wanted to share that with a little bit, and again, thank you, Joanna. Billy, did you?
I just wanted to say, so I was in a different role when I came in the district, and I remember the first board meeting, or the first Monday morning meeting we had, and Dr. Hook pulls out this document, and he's like, all right, I need to know about this, I need to know about that. I can't, it might have been 18 questions, and they were all from this lady right here.
It was a Monday morning.
Every one of them.
Yeah.
And so we just divided up as a team, and we went through, and we just, okay, and I'm sitting there thinking, like, what is going on? Like, what is it? And then, but, I mean, no one in the community can, if anyone in the community doubts the level of dedication that you put into this, I'll stand right in front of you and say they're wrong. Because I can remember we had a conversation for multiple hours about adding a logo to a football field and how much that was going to cost, and what color green are we using, and is it a special order or is it not? I mean, that's the kind of.
Be a good steward of the taxpayer.
I know, but I'm just saying, always great about making sure that we crossed our T's and dotted our I's, and really too, I mean, helping us have the most positive leg forward with things, because, sometimes it's things that you'll catch, like, hey, I noticed this,
It's all in the details.
That's right. So, I've enjoyed our conversations over the years, and opportunity for us to work together. And again, I really appreciate what you've done for the district. Thank you so much, and we will miss you, but we're just a phone call away.
Well, Billy, you're already off to a fabulous start as superintendent. I think you're going to do great things for Southern schools.
And don't be surprised on those 7:30 phone calls, Joanna. I'm not letting those go, so.
Yeah.
But I wish you two the best, and I hope you enjoy your new home. That's wonderful. Okay, on that note, number 26.
It's Joe's motion.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.